What happened to my thing?
That's what I don't know what it says. It's
I'll get a piece of paper out because I don't think I have another copy.
better.
Yeah. I'll look and see if I have another copy so you have the printed version, but I don't. I'm not going to look right now. You can just write the examples down. All right, so mortgages is the name of the loan. Typically, mortgages are taken out in 15 years, 30 years. They can be terms up to 50 years, but most of those aren't recommended, only because 30 years seems like a long time to have to pay on a house. But if you think about it, the mortgage or the loan that you take out for your house is probably going to be the largest loan that you take out ever, unless you own your own company and you're taking out loans for stuff for your company. That might be larger. But as a normal person with a normal career that doesn't own their own business, your mortgage is probably going to be the biggest loan you ever take out. 30 years is the average. There are some that will take it out further, but again, taking it out further only lowers your payment monthly, but then still you're paying more on interest for the house over the course of 20 years. So they can be taken out in multiple terms, if you will. They have fixed rates and adjustable rate mortgages, and I talked a little bit about this. I don't know what day it was and what subject we were on, but I was talking about when we bought our house. You get the choice of a fixed rate or an adjustable rate, and the adjustable rate adjusts with the market. So, you can really get, in a lack of better terms, you can really get kind of screwed over. I don't know how to put that in any other terms. If you do an adjustable rate and the market crashes and those rates climb, because it's going to change how much interest you're paying. It can change on how much your monthly payment is. Your monthly payment doesn't stay the same every month because of the adjustable rate. So you could be paying $500 a month on a loan for a house, and if the market crashes and you have an adjustable rate mortgage, your payment could go up to $1,000, $1,500, depending upon how bad it really is. So the suggestion is to always get a fixed rate mortgage, because then if the market gets real good and you have a 7% rate and the market drops to 4%, you can always refinance, which just means that they redo your loan at a lower percentage rate, and that'll make then your interest go down and it'll make your monthly payment go down. So you always have that option of refinancing your house to fix the rate. With the adjustable rate mortgage, I guess you can refinance to a fixed rate, but the problem with this is then you're at the mercy of everything increasing and decreasing based upon the market. So it's not the highly suggested adjustable rate mortgage, is not the one that most people recommend, but nonetheless, those are the two different types of mortgages you can get. And so then if you flip the page, finding monthly payments and total interest is kind of this equation that we're using here in order to kind of plug in what is your principal amount that you're going to finance, the rate, the number of payments, number of years you're going over, regular monthly payment. So as you look at the formula for computing monthly payments on a mortgage, it looks very similar to the last one we used before when we were talking about student loans. It's very similar. But this is then what all of those letters stand for. So if we're looking for the monthly payment, then we need the principal, the rate, the number of payments per year, and the number of years we're going to take this mortgage out. So basically what we're saying is, can I find all this information to plug into this? And then it's all calculator work from there. So if you look at that first example, kind of taking into consideration all of this stuff, what you find then is after one hit single, a young singer decides that she needs a $2.2 million mansion. With some of the proceeds from her CD, she puts down $500,000. So you're looking at a down payment here, leaving this much to principal, which means that's how much she's going to finance. Here's her rate that she's going to finance it at, her number of years that she's going to take it out, and they want you to find her monthly payment. So really taking all that into consideration, you plug into this equation up here. So you would have your principal amount financed, which in this case is $1.7 million, which is $1,700,000. And then you are multiplying that by your rate, which is 0.06, divided by the number of payments per year, and you're paying on it monthly, so that's 12 payments. And then your time, And then underneath, then you have 1 minus 1 plus your rate again, divided by 12. And then we're raising that to your time times the number of payments per year. Now notice that the negative I put out here in front is part of the equation. It's hard to see on the screen, but you should be able to see it on your paper. So that negative is built into the equation, which is why it's there. Now, once you get it all plugged in, it's all calculator work, and then it kind of depends upon what calculator you're using on how you can put this all in. Like, I can put it all in with the parentheses all into my calculator at once. Some of you will have to do it separately. But nonetheless, if we simplify it a little bit on top, you would get about 8,500. And then if I simplify it a little bit on the bottom, it kind of looks like this. And then continuing through that and rounding to the nearest dollar, actually we'll round to the nearest cent because it's money, you would get about $12,179.33. Now, just as a comparison, I don't have a $1.7 million house, but this is her monthly payment on that house. My monthly payment on my house is $950. So to compare just outright, we're talking about a $1.7 million house in this case. Questions on how I pulled that out of that, plugged it into the equation, did it on the calculator, any of that? All right, and I would say, just again as a comparison, I would say if I were to go sell my house right now, I could probably sell it for about $200,000. Would be my guess. It's more than what I bought it for. But I've acquired land and I've added barns and all that stuff adds money onto it. I mean, not a whole lot of money, but I also bought my house when it was in foreclosure. So I bought it for cheaper than what it was worth when I bought it.
I have a serious question. So let's say you add a barn or something like that to your land or whatever, your property. Does it end up making it like its value back if you really sell it?
Usually. Like I would say, we just put a pole barn, but we poured concrete, so it's sitting on concrete instead of dirt. And we paid like $5,000 for it, and I would say it added at least $10,000 onto the price of the house.
That's pretty cool.
So it depends upon how nice the building is. If you build a crappy building, it's not going to add any value, and it also depends upon where you place it on your property. And I don't know really how that all pans out, but that's what they say. I probably won't move until I get too old to climb the stairs. And then I might just build a bedroom downstairs. So, I mean, I don't see us going anywhere. But. All right, so up here, if you want to read the side light, this kind of talks about the mortgage crisis. This was when I bought my house. So I bought my house somewhere around 2011, maybe 2010. I don't remember the exact year, but this kind of goes over, and I talked about it a little bit in another class about how, we bought the house that was in foreclosure and then we couldn't sell our house in Daleville because the market had crashed. So this just kind of talks a little bit about that crashing market. I'm not going to read it to you, but if you want to read through that, you can. So we ended up having to lease or rent our house out for a couple years before we could sell it because nobody could buy a house. The market was so bad. As far as getting loans, and the interest rates were huge and all that kind of stuff. So this is just another example of the one that we just did, pulling those out and plugging them into the equation. So I'm going to kind of skip over that and drop down here and look at this example. It's the same type of idea. It's actually exactly the same type of idea. You just have one additional calculation you have to make. So the Petty's family plans to buy a home for $174,900 and has been offered a 30-year mortgage with a rate of this. They can make if they make a 20% down payment, what will the monthly payment be with this loan? So the only thing that you have to calculate is what that 20% down payment would be on this, and then subtract it from the principal. And then you're just taking those values and plugging them into the equation that we just talked about. So the first one that you want to do, there's two ways you can do it. You can either take 80% of this and use that as the principal, or you can find 20% and subtract it. You're going to get the same info anyway. But here's kind of the back side of that saves you a step. If I'm putting 20% down, then I'm paying 80%. So if I just find 80% of this, then that's the principal amount that I'm paying, which is $139,920. So then this becomes your principal, or the P, where you plug it in. Your rate is right here. We're taking it out over a 30-year loan, and we're paying on it monthly, which means that your end value is 12. So to plug that in, then you're just plugging it into that same equation that we just talked about. So your principal would be $139,920. We're multiplying that by my rate, which is 0.0545, over your monthly payments. You're making 12. And then dividing that by 1 minus 1 plus your rate again over 12. And then the negative is part of the equation. And then it would be a 30-year loan, and you're still making monthly payments, which is 12. So I'm not going to go through the simplifying process. This is all calculator work once you get it plugged in. But if you plug that in, you should get somewhere around $708.95. Massive difference between a $175,000 house and a $1.7 million house as far as payment goes. Questions on how I plug those in? Same thing we just did. I just had to calculate the 80% first. Okay, so then the next thing we talk about is I want to know how much interest I'm going to pay on this. Kind of finished it out here for your work if you want to see it. I just didn't take that off. So the next thing, this is just another example of what we just did. So I'm going to kind of skip this example because we just did one. The next thing is finding total interest on a mortgage. So just like we talked with anything else, we want to know how much more money am I paying than what I needed to loan. So if I took a loan out for $175,000, I want to know what the interest on that's going to be, because I'm going to have to pay that back. And typically on a high loan like that, interest can be high. So interest rates are very important. So finding the total amount of interest that the Petty's family would pay if they took the loan in example 5. So that's using the example that we just talked about. On a 30-year mortgage, there are 12 payments per month. So the first thing we're going to do is find out how many months or how much money we're paying on, how many payments, that we're paying on this. So 30 years was their loan value, and they're paying on it monthly. So if I take 30 times 12, that means we're making 360 payments. So we're going to find how many payments we're making first. And then the monthly payment that we just figured for was right here. So if this is how many payments I'm making at $708.95, then I can multiply those two together, and that's going to tell me then the total cost of the mortgage that I took out, which in this case is $222,000. And then the interest is your principal, or this amount minus your principal amount. So then the mortgage that I took out, or the loan that I took out, was $139,920. So if I subtract those two, you are paying $115,302 in interest alone on that loan. So when I say that your mortgage loan is the biggest loan you're ever going to take out, this is why I say that. So $174,000 I paid for my house, but over the course of 30 years, I'm actually paying $255,000 for that house, if you include the interest you're going to pay on the loan. So this is a good example of why you want a low interest rate. This interest rate was 4.5. I don't know what the interest rates are right now, but I know they're probably hovering somewhere around that. So you have, in a sense, almost doubled the amount of money that you took out, because you took out 139 and you're paying 115 on top of that. So at the end of your mortgage, you're almost double what you paid for the house. Questions on how I figured any of that out? All right, as you move down to the bottom, then what they're doing is just comparing different mortgages to different terms. And so suppose the Petty family from 5 and 6, 15, find the difference in monthly payments and interest paid between the 15 and 30-year mortgages. So now they're saying, well, let's figure it on a 15-year mortgage and see what the difference is. Same example, same amount of money they're taking out. which means that if I figure it for a 15-year, then I'm still taking out $139,920. I'm still at 4.5%. I'm still paying monthly, so 12 payments a year. 1 minus 1 plus is still part of the equation at 0.045 over 12, but now I'm taking it to 15 years instead of 30. So only thing I changed between the first one I figured and this one was this number right here. And I changed it from 30 to 15. Once you do all that calculator work, you're going to get somewhere around $1,070.38 would be her new monthly payment. And then from there, we're going to do everything we did just now. I know I've got 360 payments, or no, we've changed that. It's 15 years times 12, which would give us, we're making now 180 payments at $1,070.38 a piece, which means that I'm now paying $668.40 total. And I subtract my principal from that, which has taken then my interest payment down by almost $62,000. So comparing terms, 15 years is always the better route to go because you're saving tons and tons of money in interest, but it also raised your payment up $350 or something like that. So it's all dependent upon what you can afford when you're comparing mortgage rates. Maybe you can't afford $1,000 a month, but you can afford the $700. Just means you're going to pay more in the long run because you're paying more in interest. Questions over that one? All right, flip page. Okay, so computing an amortization schedule. So an amortization schedule, this schedule shows what part of the monthly payment is paid on the principal and what part is paid on the interest. So what they do is they take a portion of your monthly payment and they apply it to how much you took out. And then they apply a certain percentage of it to the actual interest that you're getting charged. And it's called an amortization schedule. So in order to prepare an amortization schedule, the next procedure can be used. So this is how they do it. They find the interest for the first month using this equation, which is the simple interest equation. And they're plugging 1 over 12 in for the time. Because remember, the simple interest equation is based off of years. And so we're doing it monthly. So 1/12 would be what time would be represented for 1 month. And then we subtract the interest from the monthly payment to get the amount paid on the principal. And then we'll kind of walk through the rest of the steps as we do it. So amortization schedule based on the mortgage of this mortgage, which is same one we've been using, same interest rate, same monthly payment. So this is a 30-year loan. So what I want to do is find it based off of 1 month. My interest based off of 1 month. So you take your principal, you multiply it by your rate, and then we're going to multiply that by 1 over 12 because the 1 over 12 accounts for just 1 month out of the year. So then if I do that, I've got about $524.70. Subtract the interest from the monthly payment. So if this is the interest I'm paying monthly, and my monthly payment is $708.95, then the difference between those would be $184.25. So this amount is what I'm paying on my principal, and this amount is what I'm paying on my interest per month. So you're actually paying more interest than you are on the principal. Then you're going to subtract the principal payment from the principal, which kind of is a play on words, but taking the principal amount of the loan that you paid and subtracting how much you're paying on the principal a month, which was this $184.25. And that leaves you with $139,735.75. This goes into the balance of the loan column. Now we repeat steps 1 through 3 to get the balance for then the second month. So it's the same idea. You would just keep going, and it's kind of like when they say an amortization schedule, they set it up kind of in columns. So you've got your payment number, put this up here so you can see what I'm doing. You've got your payment number, you've got how much you're paying on your interest, you've got how much is going to be paid towards your principal, and then the balance of the equation. So when they're saying columns, that's what they mean. So what we just figured is that for payment number 1, I'm paying $524.70 on interest, and I'm paying $184.25 on the principal, which I subtracted then, so the balance off of my principal was that number that we just came up with. So then what you're doing to finish the amortization schedule is just continuing that out. So if I had this on a spreadsheet, I could just drop my formulas in here and it would figure it for me. So on my second payment, I'm still paying the same thing on interest. I'm still paying the same thing on principal. And then you're subtracting this amount from that amount to get your balance. So then my next balance would be $139,550.81. And then you would just keep going. And all of these columns stay the same, right? And then I just take this and subtract it from there, and that gets me my balance. And then I take this and subtract it from there, and it gets me my balance. And I take this and subtract it from there, and that gets me my balance. So when they talk about an amortization schedule, it's basically a chart that will take each payment out and show you how much you're paying towards interest, how much you're paying towards principal, and the only time it's going to change is usually that very last payment. Could be a different amount. It could be your very last payment's only $500, and that pays off everything. But other than that, all of these columns would kind of fill out the same way. Questions on that one? Okay, so now we finished 5, 6. So if you go back to the very back pages, and I'll give you mine. If I can't find another copy of this, Duncan, I'll give you mine so you can have at least a copy of the homework. And let's do, we need to do a couple on, no, I already assigned the student loans ones, right? These were all student loans ones. So let's get out of the student loans and get into, these are all student loans, get into the other ones. Okay, mortgages then are on the next page. So let's do 31, 33, 35. And then you should be able to do 39 because it's based off of 33. So if you want to put those two together, you can. And then let's do, I'm trying to stay with odds, but I had to skip a few down here because they're based on problems you haven't done. So 41, 43. Where are these based off of? Let's do 51 goes with 35. It's the amortization schedule for it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8, 9, 10. Those are the 10 problems. So 31, 33, 35, 39, and 39 goes with 31. It's based off of the information off of 31 if you kind of want to draw yourself an arrow. And then 41, 43, 47, and then 51 is the amortization schedule for 35. So those two can go together if you want to put them together and do them at the same time. And then 51 or 53 and 55. That's 10 problems total. And then, like I said, I changed the due date on 5, 6 so that you could turn it in all together. So if you've already submitted something for 5, 6, that's fine. 7, 6. I don't know. I keep saying 5, 6. I think pre-calc is on 5, 6. You can unsubmit or just submit what you hadn't already submitted. I don't know how it works depending upon whether you're doing it on your phone or the Chromebook. So however you want to do that, but I did change the due date to tomorrow by midnight so that if you have problems on any of this or on any of the student loans ones from before, we can talk about those tomorrow when you come in. Duncan. Questions? No, just your work. So when you submit it, I don't need a copy of the questions, just the work.